seconds away on Studio 5.
I'm not a celebrity.
Lecrae takes a break from the stage to share his story.
I've seen my children born. I've seen children die, and that shaped me.
And the wife of a Dallas Cowboys legend steps out of his shadow.
With blessings also comes a lot of misery.
Plus, the filmmakers behind the multi-million-dollar God's Not Dead franchise. Studio 5 starts now.
I ain't trying to hate on my own kind, but Ab and Jesse don't speak for me.
That's music from Dallas hometown hero, hip-hop artist Lecrae. The perfect start for this edition of Studio 5, coming to you from Dallas, Texas. We've got some news about the hip-hop artist coming up, as well as news from Bishop T.D. Jakes, the pastor of the Potter's House right here in Dallas, Texas, as well as football legend Emmitt Smith and his wife Pat Smith, who also call Dallas, Texas home. All those stories are coming up, but first, let's take a look at your top 5 from Studio 5 for this week. At number 5, a new film on the issue of human trafficking called Abolitionists.
There's too much of this evil out there.
It follows the founder of Operation Underground as he goes undercover to rescue child victims of the sex trade. Gerald Molen, who produced Schindler's List, is one of the minds behind the film, out this week. Number 4, DC Talk is getting back together, but only for a week. The group promised fans a huge announcement on May 11th. To many's disappointment, they were only announcing a Jesus Freak cruise in July. Needless to say, some fans were a bit depressed. Cruising on to number 3. Natalie Grant's daughter Grace has released a new song, and she's only 9. It's called Cares and tells the story of transformation from fear to faith. She wrote it while in ICU, following a health scare. On to number 2.
I want you to know I won't give up on our love.
Singer, model, and actor Tyrese Gibson is stirring some controversy on Instagram. He posted a picture from Qatar of himself at a mosque, saying he was, quote, learning how to properly pray. Gibson later assured his fans he was still a Christian, posting later, "From beginning to end, I will always give the Lord Jesus Christ all the glory." And at number 1, comedian, game show, and talk show host Steve Harvey used his commencement speech at Alabama State University to tell students how to triumph during difficult times. Harvey shared, saying, "Every single moment of adversity in your life, 2 things are going to happen. There's going to be a lesson and there's going to be a blessing. If you let the adversity crumble you, you will lay there and wallow in the failure. But life is 10% what happened and 90% what you're going to do about it." Emmitt Smith is a football legend, former Dallas Cowboy, and Hall of Famer. He has been in the spotlight for decades. His wife has been by his side for the last 17 years, but for many of those years, she felt like she was wearing a mask, afraid to be who she really was. She's sitting down with us in this week's Studio 5 interview to talk about taking off the mask and walking in her purpose. Pat Smith is an author, speaker, and television host. She's also the wife of former Dallas Cowboy Emmitt Smith. She might seem like she has it all, but Pat's journey has not been easy. She suffered through the death of her mother, followed by a difficult divorce from Hollywood superstar Martin Lawrence. Pat dealt with guilt, insecurity, and depression. In her new book, Second Chances, she shares the story of how God completely changed her life and how he can do the same for others.
What inspired you to write the book?
I noticed that there were so many women who were feeling stuck in their situations. And I realized, you know what, I wish somebody had sat down 20-some years ago and told me, Pat, life is going to be hard. You're going to lose your mom. You're going to go through some divorce. You'll go through divorce. You'll go through some setbacks and some disappointments, and you'll feel shame and embarrassment. But I promise you, God's going to use it for his glory.
Did you ever question God after losing your mother?
I don't remember questioning him. I just remember feeling almost like abandoned. I can remember at 17 thinking my mom was going to die, Because in the 80s, when you got a breast cancer diagnosis, it typically meant you weren't going to make it. So I remember thinking, okay, she won't be there for my first wedding. She won't be there when I have a child one day. She's not going to be there through my journey. I remember thinking more of, as a child, of what I was going to be losing. And then her dream was to see me graduate, and she did, from college. But then a year after that, she lost her fight. And when she lost her fight, I was 22 years old. And it was like I lost who I was. I lost sense of direction. There was this huge void in my life that I couldn't figure out what it was. And then I, for whatever reason, didn't want to feel like a stepchild or abandoned. You know, I felt embarrassed not having my mother. And I immediately put on a mask that I'm okay. I can handle this. I'm going to keep moving.
Now, in the book, you talk about forgiveness being perpetual. What did you mean by that?
When Emmett and I were dating, we had a very difficult situation happen. He was still in Dallas, I was in LA, and he reconnected with an ex-girlfriend. She conceived a child, and that was one of the most difficult things I had to overcome with forgiveness. Because here it was, this, what I thought was my Prince Charming, this perfect man who was coming to rescue me, right? Well, there is no perfect man or woman, and I learned that through this. God is the only perfect anything, right? And so God had to teach me that. So I'm going, here I am such a lover of people. I love children. How can I be in a relationship with someone who I don't know if I forgive, who's hurt me in a place so deep? And how am I going to love this child? And I remember just going to God saying, please, if this is for us and I'm to work through this, I need you. And if I need to let it go, help me to let it go. Well, God, of course, he did not let it go. I mean, he supported us with angels that helped us and undergirded us through this process of healing. I will tell you, I believe that forgiveness is a choice, but after that, it takes time.
Pat's book is called Second Chances. The foreword for that book is written by a man whose name you may have heard of, Bishop T.D. Jakes. He's her pastor, the pastor of Potter's House Church right here in Dallas, Texas. And this week, Bishop Jakes is making some entertainment news of his own. He's got his own new talk show coming to television in the fall. It's called The T.D. Jakes Show. We caught up with Derek Williams, his vice president of entertainment. He gave Studio 5 a sneak peek at what we can expect when the show debuts this fall.
It's about him being who he is. You know, he's a person to try to mend people together. Conflict resolution is a really strong suit. And so we're going to be doing more of that, but we're going to be doing it in a talk show format. I kind of say it's a mixture of when Oprah meets Dr. Phil. He's right in the middle of that.
Bishop Jakes is not the only man of faith coming to daytime. Fox Network is debuting a new talk show this summer, and it features a panel of pastors from across the country. As you saw at the top of the hour, Studio 5 is coming to you right now from Dallas, Texas. This is the hometown of hip-hop artist Lecrae. He is now a media mogul, and we learned this week that he has signed a new deal partnering his Reach Records with Columbia Records. That is the same label of Pharrell Williams, Beyonce, and Adele. We sat down with the artist just before he was about to begin writing his new book that is now out. Let's take a look at that focus for this week's interview.
You take the leading role and I play the background.
Unashamed is a theme for hip-hop artist Lecrae and his 116 clique. The name comes from the Bible verse Romans 1:16, which reads, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone who believes." And Lecrae's bold, unashamed music matures with his life. He opens up about it in his New York Times best-selling book, Unashamed.
Beforehand, it was just, I don't know much, but this is what I know, you know? and it's just kind of like, you know, little brother screaming from the rooftops, I don't know everything, but I know one thing, you know? And now it's more big brother, uncle, saying, have a seat, you know, have a seat. Let me tell you about some things that I've seen and I've learned, you know.
In your music, you share the pain of being molested and taking a girlfriend to have an abortion. Why share that?
I think leaders lead in vulnerability, and people can find healing. You know, it's said that hurt people, but heal people, heal people. And I can talk about those things because I'm healed, and it helps other people find a sense of healing, and to be able to go there and pull those things out of their own closets and deal with them. Maybe they're not as bad, or maybe they're worse, but they've seen someone who's free enough to say, yeah, I'm gonna talk about it, and I'm fine. You know, yes, it's painful, but I have enduring hope. And even though I know I'm not perfect, and I know I have my days where somebody's like, I hate him, I would hope that I would have a legacy that demonstrates that I demonstrated a character consistent with what you know, Christ calls me to. At least that I died trying.
And Lecrae doesn't only have a New York Times best-selling book on his hands. Coming this fall, he's got a new documentary. And Studio 5 sat down for an exclusive interview with the man behind that film. Look forward to that in an upcoming edition of Studio 5. Still to come on Studio 5, God's Not Dead gives birth to what some call the faith version of Netflix.
There's over 4,000 titles on it. In the first 6 months, over 500,000 hours were streamed.
Sitting down with the founder of PureFlix. Welcome back to Studio 5 from Dallas, Texas. We are here covering a number of developing entertainment news stories, including the screening of a new film from Regent University called In Lawfully Yours. It stars actor Corbin Bernsen, Mary Lou Henner, and Chelsea Crisp. That is going to be coming out in the fall, rounding out a pretty packed year when it comes to faith films. One of the biggest faith films we saw this year was God's Not Dead 2. We're sitting down with the man behind that film for a look at this growing trend.
Mr. Inley, you are on board and I charge you with contempt.
I accept the charge because I have nothing but contempt for these proceedings.
God's Not Dead is a faith franchise for PureFlix Films, grossing millions upon millions at the box office the first and second time around, with plans now for a third. Is this what you expected when you were beginning God's Not Dead, the first one?
No, of course not. We just thought, you know, people would like it and maybe it would hit 15, 20, but never in our wildest dreams did we know that it would become the #1 independent movie, over 60 million, you know.
What would you say that film did for PureFlix Entertainment?
Opening weekend when it came out, all the Hollywood reporters were calling and they all, you know, wanted to know 2 questions. Who is PureFlix and what is God's Not Dead? You know, and so you have, which is great because you have a Hollywood talking about, you know, mentioning God in the title, but then God's Not Dead even proclaiming. And they all wanted to know, what are you going to do now that you have supposedly made it? What are you going to, you know, are you going to just go off and do your action movie or whatever else that you know, your little pet projects that you really wanted to do? And we just said, no, we're going to keep doing what we do because we feel called and we have a passion for what we do. So I'm a firm believer that God puts dreams and desires in our hearts. And if it's a God-given dream, then you will not fail.
And PureFlix now today is not just making movies, but you guys are streaming and essentially giving people Christian entertainment 24/7?
Yeah. PureFlix.com is our PureFlix Digital. And it's kind of like the faith version of Netflix.
I want to talk about you real quick before I let you go. You essentially dropped out of Bible school to go to Hollywood, correct?
Well, when you put it like that, it sounds bad. My father had always said, my father's a pastor, and he had always said, you have to at least go to Bible school 1 year. So I went 1 year to honor my father. And after that, I called my dad and mom, and I said, you know, parents, I want to leave Bible school, and I want to go to Hollywood to be an actor.
Where'd that come from, that desire to act?
I think that's what they wanted to know. I think it's a God-given thing because I saw one movie in the theater the first 18 years of my life. I grew up as a Mennonite. Mm-hmm. You know anything about the Mennonites? They make the Mormons look like a pack of Hell's Angels. But I remember sitting out in a wheat field on a tractor, and for whatever reason, I had this desire, and I hadn't seen a lot of movies or television, but to go and impact culture through the entertainment industry. And so I moved to Los Angeles. I was 19 years old, and I'm a firm believer that if you have a dream in your heart, give it to God and follow it.
Another big faith film released this year was Risen, starring Joseph Fiennes. We're sitting down with him for a look at the film as it prepares to be released on DVD. Risen is a masterful murder mystery. It's the resurrection story through the eyes of an unbeliever. British actor Joseph Fiennes plays Clavius, a man of war and death.
A big attraction for me was the way his mind worked, but what I found, to get to his mind, I found that I had to take a physical route. I went to gladiator school in Rome. And,
how long did you stay in gladiator?
I stayed long enough to never want to go back.
Clavius is an ambitious Roman soldier who first tries to prevent Christ's body from being stolen after his crucifixion. Then he sets out on an angry journey to find the body after it disappears from the sealed and guarded tomb. He's a bit of a detective.
It's beyond us.
Spare me the riddles and zealot babble. Where did you take Yeshua?
Open your heart and see.
I see delusion.
It doesn't matter.
A matter.
No.
Then give me the others and I'll grant you freedom.
I'm already free.
Did you find yourself connecting with Clavius a lot?
I did. We all want a second chance. And I think that's the really interesting component, is that I think deep down, especially in regards to putting Yeshua to death or being present and ordering his death or being part of that squad, that deep down he wants a second chance.
Risen is released on DVD May 24th, and you could win a copy from Studio 5. Check out my blog for the details. Next up on Studio 5, the Dallas Cowboys All-Pro tight end Jason Witten.
You gotta have faith that God's grace is amazing.
Opening up about his biggest opponent off the football field. Those are just a few quick snapshots of AT&T Stadium, home to America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. All-Pro tight end Jason Witten is opening up about his biggest battle now off the field, domestic abuse. It is today's Faith on the Field.
I believe wholeheartedly in the process of becoming great. Greatness is a characteristic that is not easy. Being a leader, a guy that can show it and demand it and set the standard every day of what we want to accomplish through success and also through adversity. God's blessed me with that. That's being able to be mentally tough and to control your thoughts, and I believe in that. See through the dark days. It impacted my childhood a lot, and my mom was a strong woman to handle what she went through, and it's tough. My dad was somebody we loved, but on a handful of days, it was your worst nightmare. The pain was deep, it was real. It was something we felt. Seeing others go through pain, such as your mom. I can remember being in the bedroom and just thinking, when's this gonna end? They were just a great example in our life. What characteristics you wanna have, and more than that, they're the ones that took us to church and led us to a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's what changed our life. My support in stopping domestic violence is unwavering. And I think as athletes, I really believe big, strong, physical men that have national spotlight, that's our platform. That's our duty, is to speak out. I just try to provide hope and say that you are beautiful, you are smart. Provide avenues for these moms to get back on their feet and encourage them that your family is going to be okay. And I think that comes with the perspective of knowing who Jesus Christ is, that He's your Savior, and that you got to have faith that God's grace is amazing. If I talk about my life and overcoming the obstacles, I think it was truly finding forgiveness. It allows you to grow and move forward in your own life. And so if I didn't have that, I don't think I would have been able to have the career I've had, the family I've had, because there would have been a lot of resentment. And it didn't come easy. You have to go through it. When you constantly go to your relationship with Jesus, you understand that He is the way. And in my life, the redemption part of it is to be able to say, we went through it, we forgave, and now look at our family, look at our life, and the people that we're reaching. I think it's always better to give and have an understanding that that's what greatness is all about.
And still ahead on Studio 5.
Take me to the water.
Diving into reality with comedian and radio host Rickey Smiley.
Okay, who made bubbles just now?
The Studio 5 team is already hard at work on the next edition of the show. Let's take a look ahead to next week.
This will be a great moment in Black history. The first Black family to get on the boat and go to Bimini on spring break and swim with sharks. And we might be the first Black family to get ate up too.
Getting real with comedian and single father Rickey Smiley in the second season of his hit show.
It's real, and that's why we call it Rickey Smiley for real. This stuff is not set up, you know. This is real. No acting involved, no scripts. It's just real, raw, uncut, me, 5 teenagers.
We're looking forward to bringing that to you next week. For now, I'm giving the final word to Pat Smith. It's a message for you, a very encouraging one, about you and your purpose.
I believe that everyone was born and purposed for something great. And I just encourage people to, whatever that is, whether the enemy tells you you're not capable or you're not good enough or you've done something in your past that, you know, makes you too dirty or you can't minister, you can't tell anybody anything. I'm here to tell you, I don't care what you've been through. I don't care what you've been told. If God has called you to do it, it is in you to do. Go do it.
If God has called you to it, it is in you to do. And that is the final word for this edition of Studio 5, coming to you from Dallas, Texas. Until next time, reach out and touch me at Ephraim Graham on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then come on back and see where Studio 5 takes you next week. Bye-bye.